Hello.
Hi.
Welcome
Friends.
back. How are you? Hope you're doing well.
Start this off with some ASMR.
Ew.
Like I wasn't just in the kitchen trying to eat a deviled egg while also having a misophonia issue because the cats are in there eating and it was like
Oh, it's
awful.
disgusting. I feed them and leave. Sometimes I'll stop and listen to it if the whole house is quiet. And then I'm like, no, it's gross. I'm over it. It's horrible.
Oh.
All right. We are going to dive right on into this week's topic. Oh my God. That wasn't it.
It's a little more classy than that.
Based off of the feedback that I was talking about a couple episodes ago that Laura gave us, where she's really digging the winter solstice stuff and all of the witchier episodes. So I really, that affirmed that I was really wanting to do this episode. So, and as I wrote it, I was getting increasingly excited for it. So I'm going to jump right on into my notes here. So over the many centuries of human history, there have been many esoteric practices, but the elements have always been the cornerstones of magical practice, no matter what type of practice it is. Whether it is an ancient practice or modern practice, these four basic elements create boundaries and structures for the larger, multidimensional spiritual frameworks. Maybe it is because I'm an earth sign, but I have really been drawn to this topic for some time.
Us earth signs.
Yeah. The earth is quite literally the ground we walk on. It is the rocks, the mud, the mountains, the grass. It is our body and our physical manifestation in this life. Earth is at the center of everything, of us, our money, and our stability. Fire is the flame in the hearth. It is the candle, the bonfire, the sun. Fire both warms and it destroys. It has the power to transform and incite. Fire is the flame of passion and our will to go on. Water is the rain from the skies. It is the world's oceans, seas, rivers, lakes, ponds, puddles, everything. It is a comforting bath. It is the morning dew. Water is our blood, sweat, and our tears. It rules our emotions and manifests as memories. Air is all around us. It is the sounds we hear and the wind that touches our faces. Air carries seeds and pollen, fortunately, but unfortunately, and the scents that both warn and delight. Air is our voice, our thoughts, and our ideas. While every esoteric system uses these basic elements differently, they are still there, which helps to structure practice and develop a greater understanding of self. Please allow me to take you on a little bitty trip to the past, and trust me, it will make sense in the grand scheme of what what I'm at least trying to tell you here today. On December 24th, 1968, the astronauts of the Apollo 8 space mission celebrated Christmas Eve by orbiting the moon. As their spacecraft emerged from the dark side of the moon, our home, planet Earth, appeared over the moon's horizon. Astronaut Bill Anders used his camera to capture a defining photograph. The image depicts the gray and cratered surface of the moon in the foreground, while floating in the inky black background, all alone in the depths of outer space, sits a small and exquisitely beautiful blue and white planet. At the time, this was a one-of-a-kind color image. This was long before there were satellites taking images constantly that took away the need for a human photographer to get lucky enough to be in exactly the right place at the right time. There was no digital copy to immediately distribute. There was no way to ensure that the shot was even perfectly perfect. His film needed to be taken back to Earth to be developed. I couldn't imagine being the person in that dark room hoping to not totally ruin this historic camera roll. It wasn't until New Year's Day of 1969 when the world got to share in what had already changed the lives of the astronauts on that mission. Planet Earth. Our biosphere appears as a faint blue halo, like a planetary aura. Swirling white clouds, vast blue oceans, and a blush of the sandy brown of Africa. A sharp line shows that more than half of the planet is experiencing daylight while the rest of the globe is shrouded in darkness. All of humanity, save for the 3 sitting in the space shuttle, together for one extraordinary photograph. I don't know that my mind would really, truly have been able to comprehend that that photograph is quite literally of the entire world, and I'm not in it. Yet, I got to capture it. How fucking cool would that be? Like,
Right.
How cool would that be? This photograph became known as Earthrise and was known as one of the most important photographs of human history. It was our first opportunity to see our planet from a different context and gain some perspective on the beauty of the planet that we reside on. Bill Anders gave the average person the chance to see something much more than just a photograph. It provided something called the overview effect. Space philosopher and author Frank White coined this term in 1987 to describe the phenomenon experienced by astronauts when they see Earth from outer space. These travelers were interviewed by White and consistently reported that after leaving Earth and having the ability to see it in its entirety from far up above, they experienced a shift in consciousness. The emotional response to seeing all of humanity drifting in space with the vast emptiness around it is said to be one of the most tremendous connections, is said to be one of tremendous connection and awe. Seen from this vantage point, there are no borders, no divisions, and no walls. It is one planet, one home, united and beautiful, shrouded in a surprisingly thin layer of atmosphere to protect us and give its flora and fauna the gift of life. We all have had moments where we have to stop and take a step back and regroup. This shift in perspective may be something simple as walking away from an argument, taking a vacation, or turning off your phone for a little while. On some level, we all understand that in order for us to take stock of the things that truly matter to us, we need to step back and see the bigger picture. The lessons we can learn from being aware of the big picture for our planet and choosing mindfully to consider it is something that is key to empowering our spiritual practices and the whole of our lives. When we honor and accept the interconnectedness of humanity with the natural world and our place in the universe, we get our own overview of the potential that is available to us. And this was an exercise that was in the book that I used, which is called Earth Magic, Elements of Witchcraft. And it was part of the Llewellyn, witchcraft, thing that comes out every year. They put out these 4 different books on each of the elements. And that was something I learned when reading this book. And this was the final one in the series, but there's an exercise and something that would be very easy for anyone to do, to be able to get in touch with the earth, is to consider that you have company coming over and your guest is also witchy vibes and has just as deep of an interest, in connecting with the land as you do. Start with where you live and imagine how the conversation would go if they begin to ask questions. It may not be a bad idea to be knowledgeable of the land you currently occupy and possibly journal some of the potential topics that you could get into. And there's a list of 8 questions. So number 1, describe the geology of your area. Think of the ground beneath your feet. Is the soil sandy and loose, or is it hard packed clay? So here it's red clay. I'm very fortunate to have pretty good soil on my little plot of land because my Nana gardened. So I have darker soil and it's it grows things very well. Is your area in a floodplain or on the side of a granite mountain? Number 2, what are the notable geographic features? Do you have mountains, rivers, or forests that define your area? And if so, what are their names? 3, who were the first people of your area? What indigenous groups populated your region before colonization occurred? It was worded differently in the book. I meant to make a note here, but it was worded in a way that I didn't quite like, where it kind of like minimized that it was colonization. So I changed that verbiage a little bit. But do you represent the indigenous or the colonizer population? Which I would say that, like, in my personal experience, like, my ancestors definitely were the colonizers. They definitely came over here and, like, took over. What are the local ancient sacred sites? Are there standing stones, sacred wells, petroforms, or mounds nearby? Are these naturally occurring places or built by humans? Who built them and why? What is the local lore about land spirits or supernatural creatures? All around the world, there are stories of other beings that inhabit the landscape and influence the people, animals, and the land. Name 3 native trees, flowers, and plant medicines. This can be tricky, as we often have plants and trees that grow around us that were imported to our areas and have settled in so well that to us, they have always been there. Name 3 native animals, birds, fish. Even in large cities, animals find a way to make their homes. And lastly, at approximately what calendar date does each season actually seem to set in? This won't necessarily be in sync with the solstices or the equinoxes, but try to pinpoint when it begins to feel like the change of season has occurred. Because I don't think we're not fully into spring yet. Sure, it's currently, 80-something degrees, 85 degrees outside is what this says.
But
that's not going to last.
Yeah, next week is supposed to be back down to highs in the 60s.
Yeah. And then, let's see. This exercise is a chance to check in with yourself and see just how aware you are of where your most basic resources come from, and whether you understand how the features of your local landscape fit together. This list can be kept in a journal, and you can try to answer as many as you can without having to research. And once you have your answers, you can take a second look at the questions, and this time use the research tools that work best for you to fill in any blanks or update any information that may have changed over time. And as you gain knowledge over time, you can circle back to this to review your progress and add in new information as you receive it. And you can also look over this list when you travel to new places, because we travel, we like doing road trips. We prefer it. Like, we feel like we see more. There's more. We like we doing weird stuff. We like museums. We like antique shopping, and we like to. And when you like doing stuff like that, it's harder to fly with if I go to an antique store and I see something huge that I want, I can just throw it in the back of the car. It's good. But there are things, because so funny. So that miniature museum that's in Tucson that I sent you, and I was like, I would get on a plane for this. The reason why I said that is because I was like, that can't be that far. Girl, that is a full day drive, a full 24 hours. And I was like, And I told him, because he said Isaiah wants to do the Route 66. And I was like, oh, absolutely. I said, however, we would fly to California, get a rental car, and then drive home. That I would do. I said, because the road trip would be the vacation, but it would take forever if we went there and back. I was like, I would rather fly out there, see what there is to see there, and preferably San Francisco, and then rent a car and make the road trip home, the vacation. I was like, that would be something I would be willing to do. But that is all I have for my first part.
See, I like the flying because, road trips are fun. Yes, you get to see more and, stop, and You're not limited on what you can bring back if you want to bring stuff back.
I think it also too depends on how much time you have. Because like if y'all go on like weekend trips, so I completely 100% understand if you're going to like Vegas, you don't want to spend half of your weekend driving just to spend a few hours there, a day there, and then have to drive home.
Right.
100% get that. I'm not doing that.
I do like seeing like from up in the air the landscape. Like when I can bring myself to look out the window, because I have very much.
I am not a bird.
I have very much so become the type of person that I don't mind the middle or the aisle seat, because I don't necessarily want to look out the window.
Yeah.
When this last flight that we took to Florida, I sat on the way there. I sat on the aisle seat. There was nobody in the middle seat, and then Maddie was in the window seat.
Yeah.
I could still see out the window if I wanted to, but like on the way back, I sat in the window seat, and my anxiety shot through the roof every time I tried to look out the window.
Whereas I feel like, even though I am afraid of heights, I feel like I would be more comfortable on the inside like that.
I hear you, and that's what I thought too. And it might work for you. That might be the ticket for you.
Because like the experience that I have had in a plane, once I was up there, it didn't bother me to like look around.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know, it's more of, I think my fear of heights is more closely to like, that is a fallable height and I can get hurt.
Yeah.
I think I'm more scared of falling than I am of heights.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a weird thought, but I do like seeing, like, especially when we go out west and you can see where it literally looks like a blanket, like a quilt of like the different squares of land. I mean, even here, but like,
because here was like the farmland. So it's like
you see like different shades of green and different squares, and but like out west, it's like different colors of brown and red and tan, and all that. And it's really interesting to look at, especially when you get like over the mountains and stuff like that too. But anyway, back to it. So, when I sit and really think about it, everything seems to come back to Earth. Not in some grand dramatic way, but in that steady, quiet way that holds everything together, whether we notice it or not. Earth energy is the foundation of all of it. It's the soil under our feet, the weight in our bones, the part of us that knows how to endure, rest, and begin again. Earth element herbs have always carried that same feeling. They're tied to stability, growth, and that deep, nurturing kind of energy that doesn't rush but never fails you either. For generations, long before we had modern conveniences, people leaned on these plants not just for healing the body, but for staying connected to the land itself. Traditions like the Chinese, like Chinese medicine and the old Western humoral systems, understood that balance in the body comes from balance with the earth, and these herbs were right at the center of that. Now, what's interesting is that, in a way, all herbs belong to earth. That's just their nature, but sometimes you need something more specific. You need that heavier, quieter energy. The kind that helps you slow down, reflect, and actually root yourself again. That's when you turn to herbs that carry those deeper earth qualities: darkness, stillness, incubation, and manifestation. They're especially good for healing old hurts, building gratitude, and anchoring intentions so that they actually take shape in the real world instead of just floating around as ideas. You can usually recognize earth-aligned plants by how they grow or even how they feel. A lot of them stay close to the ground or grow beneath it: roots, tubers, creeping plants. Others have that musky soil-like scent. Patchouli and vetiver, I think is how it's pronounced, come to mind right away. Then there are sturdier, drier herbs, things like myrrh or hawthorn, that carry that solid, unyielding energy. Even the parts of plants matter. Hold on, let me get my tone right on this one. Even the parts of plants matter. Roots, seeds, and stems all hold that grounded foundational quality because they're tied to growth and survival. And of course, So much of that, or so much of what we eat, comes straight from this earth energy. Grains, potatoes, squash, nuts, these foods don't just fill you up, they anchor you. They remind your body what it means to be supported. That's something I think that we forget these days. When you start working with specific herbs, you really see how this plays out. Patchouli, for example, has always been tied to prosperity and grounding. It's the kind of herb you use when you want to draw something in and actually hold on to it. Vetiver goes even deeper, connecting you with stability on a level that feels almost instinctual. I totally looked up how to pronounce that, and I think it was vetiver. I don't know. Anyway, comfrey. Well, that one's a nurturer through and through, healing, restoring, mending what's been worn down. Then you've got herbs like chamomile, which I swear to you is like just that gentle hand on your shoulder when your nerves are shot. It calms anxiety and it helps you rest. And honestly, sometimes it's the most grounding thing that you can have. Hold on. I did look this one up and I couldn't do it. Echinacea works differently. It strengthens your body so that you can stand firm when illness comes around. Valerian root really settles you, especially when your mind won't slow down. A lot of these herbs show up in ritual work too, and not in a complicated way. Patchouli might be burned or carried when you're trying to draw in abundance. Mugwort, people have used it forever for dreams, intuition, and connecting to something beyond the everyday. Kind of bridges that space between the physical and spiritual realms, but it still keeps you rooted to where you are. Even seasonal rhythms follow this pattern. Winter is pure earth energy, everything pulling inward, resting, restoring. It's a time for stillness, for reflection, for letting things settle. Then in autumn, plants begin drawing their energy into their roots. That's when root medicine really comes into its own. The plant isn't really dying, it's just gathering strength, storing what it needs to survive, and it will come back stronger. And when you work with the root herbs during that time, you're tapping into that same resilience in yourself. By late summer, you start to see the opposite, abundance everywhere. Herbs like lavender and comfrey are ready to be gathered, full of that nurturing, fruitful energy. It's a reminder that growth and rest are part of the same cycle, not opposites. And I'll tell you, growing these plants yourself changes your relationship with them entirely. There's something about putting carrots into loose soil, spacing them just right, or tending to potatoes and healing them as they grow. I've personally never done either of those things, but the process of it, you know. Mm-hmm. I've grown different herbs, and just growing something and seeing it to fruition and being able to use it in your everyday is different. It's, you know, something to behold. It connects you in a very real physical way. Then when the harvest comes, you treat them with respect and you store them properly, preserve them well. It's all about honoring what the earth gave you. In everyday life, these herbs show up in the simplest of ways. A cup of chamomile tea steeped just right can calm your whole system. A tincture made from valerian root can help you finally get some real sleep. Cooking with rosemary-infused oil or warming spices like turmeric or cumin and coriander brings that grounding energy just right on into your body. Even digestion-supporting herbs like ginger or licorice root help your system balance and steady. And when it comes to protection and cleansing, earth herbs have always been relied on. Sage and rosemary, for example, are used to clear out stagnant or negative energy. You can burn them, scatter them, or just keep them nearby. It's less about the method and more about the intention behind it, which we've said before. When you're doing quote unquote witchy things, everything's more about the intention behind it and less about how you're doing it.
Right.
Now, earth energy doesn't exist on its own. It works with everything else. When you pair it with water, you get growth and emotional healing. Mugwort and honeysuckle are good examples of that balance. With air, it helps bring clarity. Or with air, earth helps bring clarity, like combining patchouli and lavender to steady the mind while keeping it open. And when it's with fire, it keeps transformation from becoming chaos. Barley and alfalfa can help ground all that intense shifting energy so it actually leads somewhere meaningful. On a deeper level, all of this ties back to the body, especially the root chakra. When that part of you is balanced, you feel steady, safe, and sure of where you stand. But when it's off, you notice it. Either you feel scattered and anxious, like you can't quite land anywhere, or you feel stuck, heavy, and unmotivated. Finding that balance is really what all this earth work is about. And honestly, herbs aren't the only way you can connect to that energy. Stones and minerals carry it too in their own quiet, ancient way. Every crystal, formed under pressure over time, holds a kind of memory of the earth itself. And when you work with them, you're tapping into something that's been around far longer than you or me. I've found that grounding stones can be incredibly supportive when life feels overwhelming. Hematite, for example, has this steady protective feel to it, like it absorbs the noise and gives you a moment to breathe. Black tourmaline creates kind of a shield, helping you feel safe and contained. Smoky quartz is gentler, easing tension and helping you let go of what you don't really need anymore. Some stones work in more layered ways. Tourmalinated quartz blends clarity with grounding. White black obsidian encourages deep reflection and release. Others, like tiger's eye or bronzite, bring in confidence and protection alongside that steadying energy. And then you've got stones like moss. Do we say agate?
Yeah, I say agate.
Which feel most like holding a piece of the natural world in your hands, supporting growth, balance, and emotional stability all at once. There's so many ways to work with them too. You can carry one in your pocket, wear it, meditate with it, or even set up a small grid in your home to create a calm, stable environment. It doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes just holding a stone and taking a few steady breaths is enough. I've even seen how combining stones with simple physical elements like clay can deepen that connection, shaping something with your hands, feeling the texture, focusing your intention into it. It becomes kind of a grounding ritual in its own. There's even a Japanese practice of polishing earth into a smooth sphere, and it's really like a beautiful metaphor. Mm-hmm. Taking something raw and shaping it into something whole and intentional. But at the end of the day, whether it's herbs, food, stones, or simple daily practices, earth energy is always there to bring you back to yourself. It's steady, it's patient, it doesn't rush you, but it'll hold you if you let it. And I think that's what draws people to it, especially when life gets loud and overwhelming. You don't need anything elaborate, just something real, something rooted, something that reminds you that you're supported, you're connected, and you're allowed to slow down and find your footing again. Reading this out loud. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you my process of getting this done later, but reading this out loud shows me, based off of what we've done in the past, that's similar, shows me how much I've changed and grown.
Yeah.
Over.
That's kind of like where I was with the beginning of this episode, where like my notes in the beginning, especially with like that overview effect.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I've not once in this whole like journey I've had of being more, I don't consider myself like a witch or anything. I would say I'm more along the lines of a spiritualist.
Right.
Where I just go with the flow, honestly. I feel the vibe. If it's a vibe and it's something that I'm like, that's easy for me to keep up with, I'm more likely to incorporate it into my day-to-day routines. And if it's like, cause like even with my job, like I embroider with intention every day. Like, generally, if there's somebody whose vibes are off, I can embroider. If I'm doing something for them, I feel confident in saying that I embroider with more intention of like, I don't feel comfortable with this person coming back into our business. Sometimes that works out. Sometimes
fall off your bike and knock out your 2 front teeth.
Well, it's usually, I mean,
I'm just kidding.
Generally, it's just like your vibes are off. I don't you don't need to be coming around here. You can find someplace else to go. Something
While
along
that
those.
Other place, I hope you step in a puddle in socks.
Right. I hope that
especially if you've brought me a shit ton of stockings and they're coming in every couple of days.
We ought to be hearing from them people soon. After last year, because I had a little hissy fit. But it's like, I don't know, it feels like we've matured since starting this podcast, and we're able to like look at our topics from a totally different perspective of what's an attainable way to do this. What is a way that doesn't feel cookie cutter?
Like with this one, I very much, part of the process was putting more of my experience and my feeling into it and less of what I was reading.
Yes.
And just trying to go straight facts. You know, like everything in here is something that I found.
Right.
But I'm trying to relate to it in some shape or fashion.
Yeah.
It's more conversational and less listy.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like I'm just like reading you a PowerPoint presentation.
Right.
Was that all you had?
Yes.
Okay. This is something that has interested me, and I never really like put two and two together that this was like part of earth magic. But burial and dirt magic. So, when you place an object in the ground, it is an act of transformation and sacrifice. The practitioner creates something and gives it up to the earth, wishing for a boon or a request to be fulfilled. The earth receives this object and transforms it, whether it rots, rusts, decomposes, or melts into the ground. The intent of the object is communicated to the earth's energies required to do the work and grant the request. When you are interacting with the earth in this way, it is more intimate and personal and will directly tap into the cycle of life, death, birth, and renewal. There is a long history of burying objects for magical reasons, and there is a plethora of archaeological evidence that has been discovered that supports this and provides a good idea of what practitioners were doing and how they were doing it.
You know what that made me think of? Crossroads.
Oh, yeah. So in ancient Rome, curses were written onto lead tablets, and then they were either buried in a grave or tossed into a well. There is a collection of curse tablets at Johns Hopkins Archaeological Museum that includes one that explicitly describes a curse directed at an individual named Plotius. He was to be cursed with terrible fevers.
Oh.
The person who wrote the curse addressed it to a pair of underworld deities, Proserpina?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. And Pluto, as well as Cerberus, the three-headed dog that guards the gates to the underworld. These tablets are believed to have been placed within a grave originally, and it is believed that the soul of the deceased was intended to be the messenger to take the curse to the deities that had been called upon. I have not once ever thought about, like, because, you know, there's like the custom of like putting things in people's coffins when they're buried.
Yeah.
Like, I have not once ever considered it from that perspective.
Yeah.
Something else we have talked about previously is witch bottles. These are protective and defensive charms that originated in Europe and have also been found in areas of North America and other places that Europeans immigrated to. These bottles have historically been considered counter magic, used to deflect malevolent magic that is hurled at the victim. These bottles were buried in the ground outside of the home, along property lines, under the threshold of the front door, or laid down under the foundation of a new building. They were sometimes buried in an obscure corner of a building, such as in the chimney, under the hearthstone, sealed inside of an interior wall, or hidden in a remote corner of an attic. As you can imagine, the process of burial is best done outdoors in the natural earth, But if you don't have access to secure and private land, you can also fill a large flower pot with clean organic potting soil and designate it for this purpose. In a pinch, small items can be tucked in with a potted houseplant, but it is important to remember that the plant will need water and that this may interfere with the item that you have placed into the soil. If you live in a place that freezes and becomes covered in snow, be mindful that the freeze-thaw cycle can cause the ground to expand and contract, get waterlogged, or heave, and this may damage objects that are buried in the ground. And depending on your reason for burying an item, this can be a bad thing, so be sure to plan ahead. There are many reasons that you may need to use burial magic, including cleansing. This is an energetic type of cleansing rather than a hygienic one. Ritual tools such as a pentacle or a bowl for salt are good candidates for burial cleansing. If you are burying an item that is delicate, water-soluble, or contains iron, it should be protected in some way from water seepage and from being stomped on or crushed. Crystals and stones are excellent things to be cleansed this way as well. The earth is their natural element, and returning them to their source for cleansing and recharging is a great way for them to receive natural earth energy. Also not something I ever thought about.
Right.
Be sure that the crystals that you bury are not affected by water. Because a soaking rain could potentially damage a water-sensitive stone such as selenite. Protection. Creating or obtaining a magical object and then burying it on or near the person, place, or thing that needs protection is a traditional form of apotropaic magic. A common form of this is the witch bottle. The corpses of domestic pets, typically cats, were used to ward off evil and were buried near an opening in the building, near a doorstep, within a wall, and embedded in the foundation or bricked inside of a chimney. And these cat corpses would often mummify naturally by the time they were rediscovered. Something else that was also used as a form of protection was shoes. They were also very common to be buried or concealed within walls. It was very popular in Great Britain, and this custom kind of spread around the world.
I started to say, I think there's something about in one of the houses in Salem where they found a shoe in one of the walls of one of the houses.
The original reason for this is unclear, but theories suggest that because shoes hold the shape of the person who wore them and they hold their essence, this could act in a similar manner to a witch bottle. It would attract and trap any malevolent energy that is directed at the person. Many of the shoes that have been found belonged to children, and it is thought that these were used because children are innocent and pure, and their shoes should reflect this. Or, alternatively, possibly because it was just simply because they outgrow their shoes faster, and this made them more practical to use. Absorbing. Dirt can hold on to memory. It has the ability to pick up the energy from buried objects, structures, living things, and events that occur on or in it. One may choose to bury an object so that it may absorb the energy of a particular place to imbue it with that associated energy. For example, if you select a sentimental object that represents your home and then burying it in your front yard for a period of time would create a strong talisman to carry against becoming homesick when traveling. Collecting the dirt from significant places for magical purposes is also extremely powerful. In African diaspora traditions, graveyard dirt is used due to its powerful connection to the energy of a burial. The knowledge, charisma, and talents of the buried individual are, quote, remembered by the soil, and this can be channeled into magical work that requires that energy. Sprinkling dirt over an object to pass the energy into it can also be effective rather than burying the object in the soil. It just depends on what is practical in that moment. Communication. I need a sip of water. My throat is getting dry. The earth can also be a great conduit for communication with the spirits of the land and the life on it. This can be done through writing a message on a piece of paper or by creating a magical object with a message to a particular spirit in it, and then burying it so that your message can be absorbed by the ground. This same idea can be used for sending messages to the underworld or to ancestral spirits. Messages and offerings, preferably biodegradable ones, can be committed to the earth, which will in turn transform and transmit them. Might I suggest getting paper that has flower seeds embedded within it so that you can write your message and then beautiful flowers will grow as a result. I also want to note that I have been doing this kind of shit for a long ass time. As I've mentioned on this podcast, as a kid, I would sit in our side yard and I would dig holes so that I could talk to my ancestors as a child. I grew up being told it was creepy and weird, but I think I had the right idea all along. And when I visit family at the various cemeteries, I do feel a sense of connection here. Their spirits may not reside there, but their bodies do. There are two in particular where I feel this connection, and that is that cemetery in town that is absolutely littered with my relatives, just spanning well over a century. And then also where my papa's buried, where him and his mom are buried side by side. And I always feel a slight tug in those directions. And if I get the chance to stop, I generally do. Even if it's just for a moment or a drive through, it just feels, for me personally, like a strengthening exercise. And then I said, anyway, you can also perform curses with burial magic, but I'm not going to be the one to tell you how to do it. If you want to know how, you can get this book and find out for yourself. I'm not bringing that kind of karma my way. Moving on to manifesting. If there is something you want to manifest in your life, write it on a piece of paper or create it symbolically out of biodegradable material. This should be something small that can fit inside the palm of your hand. Dig a hole in the ground or a pot of fresh organic potting soil and drop your paper or object in. Cover it with a layer of soil and then add a few seeds or a baby plant and cover it accordingly. Water your new plantings and take really good care of them. Visualize the thing you want to manifest growing as the plant grows. This type of spell takes time and patience to work because it needs time for the plant to take root. For this reason, it is best to plant something that grows quickly. Flowers such as sunflowers work really well for this, as well as herbs such as cilantro and basil, which I love cilantro, so I might try growing like my own cilantro.
We do that.
And these should all germinate and sprout within 7 to 14 days and then come to maturity within weeks. If you plant an acorn and wait for the mature oak, you would be waiting a lifetime. There are also detailed instructions on how to make a witch bottle in this book, but I fear that my fingers feel as though they may fall off at this point. So I'm going to leave you with one last dirt-related topic, graveyard dirt. I'm going to dig in a little bit more because I've already mentioned it, but this gets into it a little bit more. The use of graveyard dirt dates back to ancient Egypt and is still used as an ingredient for practitioners of African diasporic religions, witchcraft, and folk magic. The idea behind using this type of dirt is that the energy and wisdom of the person buried in the ground here has permeated the soil around where they rest. When a person dies, their soul may move on, but their talent, their knowledge, and their strengths are remembered by the body that is committed to the earth. When this earth is gathered, it becomes a powerful ingredient in magical spells. In order to collect the graveyard dirt, you must first identify which grave you want to collect from. The grave of someone related to you or whom you admired in real life would be a perfect place to begin.
See, that just put it into perspective because we've talked about graveyard dirt before, but never like specifically where in the graveyard it comes from. So like my brain, because sometimes I need specifics. Yeah. It's just like, you're at the edge of the graveyard. Yeah. Just pick up, get what you need. But
right.
You wouldn't want to, you'd want to pick it to be picked from an area of someone that you know and trust and know that what they were about is something that you're trying to, that's your intent as well.
Right. So the traits of the person will help you determine the use for the soil. So, for example, if your great-grandfather was a war hero who earned many medals for bravery, dirt from his grave would be appropriate for spells of protection and courage. If, say, your late aunt was a successful medical doctor, the dirt from her grave would be appropriate for healing spells. If you are lucky enough to be able to visit the grave of a favorite musician or author or, artist, whatever, this dirt would be appropriate for creativity spells. Now, this part is very, very important. Upon reaching the grave, you need to spend some time communing with the spirits there. Reach out to the spirit belonging to the grave that you want to obtain the dirt from and ask permission to take it. If it does not feel right, do not do it. If you feel that permission has been given and it feels right, you only need a very small amount of soil, just enough for a small bottle or jar. Be sure to be prepared with a spoon or a small trowel. You will also need to bring a gift or offering of some sort to leave at the grave in exchange for what it is you are taking. This is common across many traditions that use graveyard dirt and must be observed. Customary items to leave include rum, whiskey, coffee, coins, flowers, incense, or even tobacco. You may be aware of a particular object that was a favorite for the individual that they would appreciate, and that would be completely appropriate to leave as well. When you are digging your dirt out, be sure that you are not harming any plant life that may be present. Simply cut a small hole in the turf, carefully pulling back the sod, scooping out only what you need. Tuck your offering into the hole and replace the sod. So it doesn't have to be anything big,
right.
just something little. And depending on how busy of a cemetery that this is, because like here locally, you could probably get away with doing this and nobody would notice.
Right.
But if it's like one of those like well manicured, heavily guarded, whatever cemeteries, but you may want to bring some flowers with you. Fussing with flowers at a graveside is common, so you would be able to discreetly take some soil without attracting too much attention. And it's part of your offering. And when you exit the cemetery, you should walk backward out of the gate or turn around 3 times before leaving. This is said to confuse any spirits that may try to follow you home. Your bottle of graveyard dirt is potent, and you will only need a tiny pinch or a small spoonful for most of the spells that you would need it for. It can be added to poppets, charm bags, or witch bottles. Sprinkling it around the outside of your home keeps unwanted visitors, both visible and invisible, away from your door, which this might be something that I might try.
Right.
If you put together an ancestor altar on Samhain, a bowl of this will aid in communication with the dead. And lastly, there are many customs that are tradition specific that are attached to the collection and use of graveyard dirt. So if this is a practice that seems interesting to you, it may be worth doing more research on. So, and I might myself do that.
Right.
Because that seems like something that I would be totally down for. Especially when it comes to like sprinkling it around the house to keep on, because like y'all heard my story a few weeks ago of our unwanted visitor, and I feel like my doing certain things along those lines kept her from getting in the house.
Yeah,
like 100%. You can't convince me otherwise. Because she was definitely here long enough to be able to at least try. Yeah. But I feel like there was something keeping her from getting in here. But yeah, that was Earth Magic. And I feel, I liked it. I enjoyed researching it. I used 100% that book for the entirety of, and I feel like I learned a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot more in there that I would really like to dive into. So I'm really glad that whoever donated it at the thrift store and I picked it up, thank you. But yeah. Let me open my Autism Tennessee is our nonprofit of the month this month, and their mission is to bridge the gaps between support, resources, and programs so autistic individuals are empowered to recognize their potential and discover the meaningful connections needed to realize their goals. And they envision an interdependent world where diversity is embraced and autistic people have opportunities to thrive. So if that is something that you feel led to donate to, there will be links across our socials and in the description for you to be able to do such a thing. And we never see any of that money. It goes directly to these organizations. Right. We don't want your money. We want you to send it directly to these places.
We don't want your money for this.
Right. But while you are on our socials, please give us a follow at
Facebook,
Instagram,
TikTok,
YouTube.
Email us at wanderersofweird@gmail.com. Send us those Dear Wanderers.
Dear Wanderers. I think I'm going to put out a form this time. I think I'm going to make a form. Whether it's a Google form or whatever. It'll be some sort of form for somebody if you would like to click into that and type up a little question or anything, really. Tell us a story. Tell us a ghost story. Was your house haunted when you were a kid? Tell me about it. I want to know. Anything else?
I don't think so.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye.